So ladies and gentlemen, a very, very big welcome to Lecture 8. Getting very close towards the end of the semester now. You guys have your assignment that is going to be due in a couple of weeks. So it's very important. We're going to go and start delivering the topics that are relevant for that assignment, as well as we're going to go and ensure you need to pick up on that and continue going and doing your second part of the assignment, which is really about Agile, that we started teaching you about last time we met, and we're continuing to teach you about it today. So it's very, very important you learn everything about Agile and you apply it very well to your assignment to be able to get a good mark. The good thing about our tutorial now is because our tutorial is just very well focused on ensuring you guys are going to get the guidance onto doing what you're supposed to be doing for that assignment. So I will guide you on that. I will make sure I keep on supporting you on that. And an interesting thing is that, there was initially, assignments. I'm putting assignments for you available on Moodle as a sample. There's actually now 2 assignments on Moodle, and the reason why is because the second assignment that I've added as a sample has done a very good job in terms of identifying what we know in terms of who the users are for the system we were trying to develop at that particular point of time. And also about looking how do we write the user stories and how do we actually go and write the acceptance criteria. These were not written into the first file that is uploaded on Moodle, and that's why it's very, very important that you guys look at those files. The second file, I would say, is have some stuff that is better than the first file, and the first file have some stuff that are better than the second file. But definitely you need to go and know about all the users, who they are, define them, and then start writing stories about them. So it's very important you go and you look at that information. Today we're going to talk about the productivity tools for the modern team. We're going to talk about how do you actually prepare yourself for working on an agile environment. And we're going to really talk about using the Kanban. And the Kanban is something that definitely you're going to need to go and show me about when it comes to using the Trello system. You need to create a Kanban board which show me all your user stories and show me how the user stories will be moving across various stages until we go and get releases. We're going to go and talk about Agile. We're going to talk about how do we actually move across more than one stage in an Agile methodology. So it's about all of these things you guys need to really know about to be able to go and get the right outcome. So let's just go and start talking about that and see how we're going to go and learn about applying all of these Kanban tools. Now, does any of you remember what this image talks about? Can anybody come and try to explain it? I've explained it in the previous time. Can anybody remember how do you explain that? So what is happening? Anybody knows what this is called? Not the initial requirement, it's called something else. What is it called? Shinanye?
Phase?
What's that? I'm just actually finding some people just trying to type. Okay, yeah, thank you, Kevin. How are you, Kevin? Welcome. Kevin said it's work package deliverables. Yeah, but there's a very specific name that we use in a sort of agile environment.
Software development lifecycle.
No, not the traditional. Abdullah, you were raising your hand. Tell me, Abdullah. Abdullah? Abdullah? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, you wanted to say something? You raise your hand?
No, sir. Unfortunately, it has got. Sorry for that.
That's okay, no worries. All right, guys, I spoke and I said it's called a product backlog. Do you remember that? Do you remember that term, product backlog? So it's really the product backlog. The product backlog is really about all the features about what we're trying to go and deliver for our system. So let's say you're going to go and develop a new website, and the website have 50 features. The product backlog basically is all of those features we're trying to go and create and set up to be able to go and get delivered. We haven't really delivered anything yet. We just basically created the backlog. We basically created the information about the priorities. In other words, which one is 1, which one is 2, which one is 3, which one is 4. And what I mean by 1, 2, 3, 4 is not when they were delivered or when they were created. It's just more about what is the priority of each one of these various user stories. Do they have a high priority or do they have a low priority? If they are having a higher priority, that's where you go and pick up those user stories that are actually currently in the product backlog. You pick them up and you say, okay, now because this is the highest priority, I'm gonna start working on the user story number 1. And once you say, I want to start working on user story number 1, then you start going into the information. How am I going to work on it? I'm going to need to plan, design, develop, test, evaluate, and so on. And eventually, once you go and deliver more than 1 user stories, a lot of times, you go and say, okay, now I'm going to go and make sure I'm going to go and deploy all of those features that needs to go and be delivered at any particular point of time. So it's basically very important to really go and bear all of that in mind from that perspective. There's a very specific way you need to go and be writing the backlog and the user stories within that backlog. I will go and actually be explaining that in details about how it needs to be done. You need to make sure you follow exactly the structure that I explain as part of your work, because if you don't follow your structure, you wouldn't have represented all the important components that needs to be in the user story. So I'll talk more about that, and I'll explain to you further how it's done. I also, the assignment that I've added on Moodle goes and show you how the user stories gets written, what's the format you need to go and write them. Now, before you write any user story, you need to ask yourself this very simple question: who is actually my user? Who is going to be using that system? If it's a website, if it's an application, who is actually going to use it? So before you write any user story at all, your job is to go and identify who are the actual users that I need to go and actually know. And that's something to really go and bear in mind. So there are many, many productivity tools that are basically used by the modern team now. And when I talk about those tools, a lot of them are actually repetitive. They basically get used by the Agile manager, as well as the Agile developer, as well as the actual other people within the development team. But the bottom line is there's a lot of tools we need to go and try to go and use in an Agile environment to be able to get the right outcome. There are tools for the manager, there are tools for a developer, there are collaboration tools, not productivity tools, collaboration tools that are available for the Agile development team. So I'll talk more about these in a second. Now, starting with the Agile manager. Now, there are so many, if you want, softwares, the commercial off-the-shelf software. In other words, there are so many softwares that people could use to be able to go and deliver an Agile project. But the thing about that is that they're not actually, the way that they are is they're not built specifically to your needs as an organization. So it's not specifically for you. It's just something off the shelf. Everybody out there use it. If you want to be able to go and use it yourself, and it's basically something that is standardized that we go and use ourselves. So commercial off-the-shelf software must designed to work with various approaches, you know, the Scrum and the Scrumban and the Kanban. All of these are basically you know, approaches or tools we're going to need to go and work on to be able to go and deliver those projects. So Scrum and Scrumban are specific approaches and ways to go and actually deliver an Agile project. Kanban is more the visual representation of all the user stories you would need to go and deliver to be able to go and ensure you get the outcome that the client is actually requesting. So we talk about Scrum, Scrumban, Kanban. You know, many include the provision for the custom Agile management methods and for integrated tools. So when I talk about custom methods, which mean when you are working in Agile, let's say you want to go and do a sprint planning, well, you're going to go and do a sprint retrospective. You don't keep on doing the same thing over and over again. And the reason why is because if you're going to keep on doing exactly the same thing, use exactly the same tool and so on, what's going to happen is there's people that are going to be working on the project are potentially going to actually get bored because you are actually unable you know, to introduce something new. It's like when I repeat the same thing over and over again, I say, look, mate, this is really bloody boring. I don't want to go and do it. And it's really more about giving the actual custom management, so you can actually go and make some changes depending on what is happening all around you. Can I make some changes in a way that is going to be more beneficial, in a way that is going to actually, you know, keep the way that I go and deliver my agile projects, keep them, you know, new and refreshed all the time. So we talk about, you know, product planning. We talk about the product backlog. We talk about sprint backlog. So in other words, the product backlog, if the product I would like to go and deliver is in the form of a, I don't know, a software application, and that software application have 50 features, then what I'll have, I have something called a product backlog, because for every feature that I would like to deliver, I would usually have one user story that I write, and that user story is written in the form as a person, and that person is the user who needs to be doing the job. As a user or as a lecturer, for example, I want to be able to go and log into Moodle, because that tells me what I want to go and do, so that I can go and upload lecture materials. So I have, as a user, who is the person doing the job, I want to be able to log into Moodle, what I want to do, so that I can go and upload materials, why I want to go and really actually go and do it. So it's really about looking at all of these three components. Now, when I have 50 features that I'm trying to go and deliver, that's mean I have 50 user stories, and these are basically all added to my product backlog. The product backlog is basically what I showed you earlier. I told you this is really the product backlog. And I told you we make the priority of all of these items. So what is higher priority? What is lower priority? We start making the changes. So because of that, you go and actually look in terms of your product backlog, and you say, okay, now I'm going to go and work on a sprint backlog. And the sprint backlog is really this item here. What am I working on in this iteration to be able to go and deliver to the client? So to know what I'm working on, I need to know which one is the highest priority at that particular point of time. And that's what goes into my sprint backlog. Now, when I have my sprint backlog, I have my planning. I have to plan what I would like to go and do. And that's where we're talking about sprint planning. So plan the actual delivery of that user story that you have chosen to would like to go and deliver at that point of time. Now, what will happen is when you plan what you want to go and deliver, then you're going to have to go and start implementing the plan. And implementing a plan is really about ensuring people who are part of your Scrum team are actually doing the job that they're supposed to go and be doing. So what do I do? So what do I do to ensure that the people are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing? Well, I have to make sure that I'm going to keep on monitoring what is happening in my team every single day. So every single day, the Scrum Master, the development team, and anybody else that is actually involved in that, every single day, what do? Every single day, they basically ensure that they ask people 3 questions. If I'm the Scrum Master, I come and ask people, tell me what you have done yesterday, tell me what you are going to be doing today, and tell me what is actually stopping you from achieving progress. 3 things. What have you done? What have you done yesterday? Help me to know basically, you know, the progress. What are you doing? What's happening there? What are you going to be doing today? Well, that's something else which basically helped me to go and try to think from more the perspective of, okay, what's going to happen now? Like, what am I going to be doing now? What's blocking me is something that the Scrum Master will have to kind of sit down, don't discuss it in that Scrum meeting. And the reason why we don't discuss it in the Scrum meeting is because the Scrum meeting is only a meeting that is supposed to be very quick. It will take around 15 minutes. And within those 15 minutes, the job needs to go and be basically fully completed and ready to go. So what happened is, we go and we have that meeting. Someone comes and say, oh yeah, I want to go and deliver feature one, but I'm having this problem because there's a technical difficulty and I can't solve it. We don't talk about that problem in a meeting, because if I talk about that problem in a meeting, I'll be wasting every other person's time inside of that meeting. So instead, what do I do is I will go and I will say, no problem. I noted your problem down. I basically go out, I make sure I run a meeting for everybody. I make sure everybody tells me what they're doing, what they're going to do, and so on. And after the meeting, any issue that is basically going to be inhibiting the progress is an issue that I'll go and be discussing and try to learn about it straight away. When? Straight away after I go and I have my specific meeting with the actual guys. So this will help me to keep on ensuring that every day, if there's any inhibitor, we're dealing with it straight away and the progress of the project won't be inhibited. Now, once we finish working on the whole sprint, we finish, we plan, we design, we deliver, we test, and we're actually ready to go. What do we do then? Well, we finish the sprint. If we finish the sprint, we probably have done things very, very well in terms of how we delivered them, but also most probably we also have made some mistakes. So instead of, keep on repeating the same mistakes that we've done while we're trying to deliver the actual sprint, we sit down at the end of the sprint and say, okay, what worked very well while we're trying to deliver the sprint? And they tell you. And then you say, what didn't work very well while we're trying to go and deliver that sprint? And again, you get that information. And from there, what you do is you'll be able to go and pick up that information from people, learn about the mistakes you guys were doing while you're trying to go and deliver. And from there, what will happen, you'll be able to try to learn not to go and repeat those mistakes that you've already done during that first delivery that you're trying to go and do. So it's very, very important to actually go and learn from the mistakes that you've done so that you won't actually go and repeat them. Now, you go, you finish the sprint, you work on it. What happened after you actually go and work on the sprint? Well, yeah? Okay. What happens after we go and work on the sprint? Well, after we work on the sprint, we go and make what is known as a sprint release. So I need to go and decide when I'm going to release it. And releasing the outcome of the sprint is like I am going to give the client what they basically have asked me to go and deliver for them. So if there's if I am ready to go and deliver, let's say feature 1, 2, 3, 4, what I'll do is I'll be able to go and start working on delivering those features and releasing them so that the client is going to be able to actually go and use them. So it's something to really go and bear in mind. Now, other things to think about from an agile management perspective, there's like graphs, such as what we call a burn down chart, which basically show you how much work you're actually doing every day and how much work is remaining. So as you start doing more work, the chart will start going down until basically the chart gets 0 because we've already delivered every single thing we need to go and deliver. We have a, burn up charts, for example, to show, how, when do we actually finish the work? So, and how much work are we actually finishing accumulatively throughout various points of time. But basically, it's just about trying to go and really try to measure and understand what is happening at any point of time. So you say in terms of the tools for the project manager, but if we talk about the tools for the actual development teams, well, there are some things that are actually, if you want similar, and some things are like the burn down chart, it's the same. The sprint release management, it's the same. The sprint retrospective, it's the same. The sprint daily meeting, it's the same. So all of these things is basically about ensuring we are doing the, the capturing of the data, and we are sharing that data with the right people to be able to ensure we get the right outcome. So if we go and conduct a daily Scrum meeting, then we know basically who needs to be doing what. And then we take all of these notes, and after that, we communicate that information so that nobody would have missed off nobody would have basically missed the opportunity of, you know, of doing the right thing. So, you know, we want to make sure that everybody knows what needs to be done. Because we're communicating that outcome and that information to them, we are actually able to go and tell them this is what we spoke about in the meeting, and ensuring that they follow up on the work that needs to go and be done. There's also obviously other things for the development. For example, there's extreme programming, which is really more about an approach of how do we go and program and using the agile delivery to get the right outcome. Things like, you know, what sort of testings we need to do. Things about, do we go and do editing for the code to make it better? This is really an approach to agile that specifically focuses on how do we actually make our programming better to get the right outcome. There's obviously collaboration. There's also, you know, cooperative development, people working together as a team. And that's really the most important tool you could think about for us to be able to get the right outcomes. If we're not going to, if we're not actually going to be able to get that information, if we're not able to go and collaborate and speak together and work as a team, we simply won't be able to go and get the outcomes we need to go and get. Now, if I talk about, you know, the future of agile development productivity tool, well, you know, agile teams must be free, okay? You can't just tell them what to do, okay? They must be ready to go and decide what is the best way they could actually follow for them to get the right outcome. How could we create the work? How could we manage the resources? How could we create our plans? You know, what tools we should be able to go and use. You shouldn't be very prescriptive onto telling an agile manager how they need to go and do things to be able to get the outcome. Again, agile development is more about people. A people-centric approach, a people focus. People will have to go and choose the software. People will have to go and decide how to collect and deliver the requirement. People are the one who needs to go and choose the process. So any productivity tool that we need to go and use and develop is a tool that needs to go and be developed by having them in mind that people are the ones who need to have the flexibility that is needed to be able to really go and get the right outcomes. So ladies and gentlemen, this is a question to you. How can you prepare for agile project management? I'm going to give you a few minutes to really go and think about that question before I go and start getting your responses. So I want you to go and start making some research, just read about it, and or if you can actually go and relate to your experience. And the question is, how can you actually prepare for agile project management? What I'm going to do, I am going to be starting your time now. So the time has just started. Give yourself a few minutes to be able to go and answer that question, and then we'll come back to continue with an answer. So please start searching for that answer now. Okay, guys, so I can see that you guys have sent through a number of answers here. So you know, some answers relate, well, we need to really focus on the scope and vision of the project before we start it. That's totally correct. You know, how are you going to know what you're going to go and deliver if you're not going to, you know, understood the vision? You haven't spoken to people, you haven't understood the scope. It's not very clear for you what needs to be done. That's one thing to actually go and bear in mind. It's very important. Manage workflows, make critical business decisions. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but yeah, I think probably you could clarify a bit more on that one. I see that you will need to have a meeting with my team members to discuss about the project, the aim and purpose. Yeah, absolutely. You're going to have a Scrum team. You're going to have to go and work with them to be able to get the right outcome. So it's really about working with them. Yes, again, setting the vision, scope, and planning, building your product roadmap, creating a release plan. Yeah, so when I'm going to go and release all of these user stories, sprint planning. Yeah, I need to go and plan what I want to go and deliver. You know, sprint reviews and so on. Yeah, all of these things will help you to go and prepare for agile project management. You know, and when I say that prepare for agile project management, it doesn't necessarily mean, you know, like for example, I might have went and worked and deliver one project. But to prepare for my next project, I'll basically have to go and learn from what I've done in this project. And that's why we talk about a sprint review. That's why I talk about the retrospective. It's about really learning, determining which agile methodology, process, and tools. Yeah, very, very good, Kev. What tool am I going to be using? There's various approaches and variations to how I can go and deliver things. So the question is, well, how do you want to deliver things? And obviously, people will be different into their preferences. Yeah, creating proper plan, proper requirements, so many answers, planning for sprints, roadmap. Yep, keep track with daily stand-up meetings. Yeah, that's while I'm delivering. Yeah. Decide what to focus on next. Absolutely, you know, understand what is the priority of what is in the backlog. So all of these guys are very, very valid answers. And I'm going to really go and start talking about a number of things. Now, first thing, I want you to always remember that Agile is an iterative and incremental. So iterative is because we follow the same process every time we're trying to go and deliver a specific feature. Incremental is because we add one feature on top of the other every time we go and actually progress. So for us to be able to go and get our solutions to be delivered and appropriate, we can't do it if the, you know, we can't do it if the actual Scrum Master is not working with the development team, is working with you know, with the product backlog developer. You know, we need to work with all of those people. We need to collaborate together. We need to collaborate with the business to be able to really get the right outcome. So individuals and interactions are key things to be able to know. So I'm looking here, these 4 things here. They are really more about the Agile Manifesto. It's really about 4 main things. You know, I need to have individuals and I need people to work together. And that's really what's more important than having the processes and tools. Like, it's okay. It's important to have a good process. It's important to have a good tool. But what is more important is the item on the left, which is about having the individuals and having those people working together to get the right outcome. Working software, that's really the priority. That's what the client would like to go and see. And that's much more important over giving them all of these documentation. But at the same time, we gave them no software that actually works. Customer collaboration is very important. You need to speak to the customer, understand their needs, understand whether they're happy or not, understand any changes they want. This is much more important than saying to the client, let's sign a contract and the contract is final and I'm not going to go and make any changes for you. A contract is important, but what is more important is collaborating with the customer to ensure you deliver something they want, to ensure that they are going to have the right satisfaction. Responding to change is really relating to customer collaboration. Change in their needs, change in their requirement, change in the technology is much more important than following a plan that says, let me go and use the technology that used to be a good technology 5 years ago, or 2 years ago, or even 1 month ago, because we need to respond to all of those changes that are happening out there in front of us in the market. We talk about the agile planning. We have this, you know, project or the product we're trying to deliver. The first thing to ask, you know, what are we trying to deliver? What are the goals? Product goals, product charter, elevator pitch to try to actually go and tell other people about it and get them to start becoming interested. We're doing this and it's going to be great because this is your elevator pitch to try to get people to be on board with what you're trying to go and deliver at that particular point of time. And then you need to think about your release. What am I going to be releasing? How can we release value incrementally? Every time I add more value, more value, more value. What subset of business objectives will each release achieve? What user constituencies will the actual release serve? So what are we trying to go? What are we going to go need in terms of what the customer wants? What general capabilities, the high level big stories will the release offer? What are the main goals that we're going to go and actually deliver? You create a release roadmap. You create a plan. in 4 weeks or 6 weeks, I'm going to release this, which is going to give me this functionality in general. Another 6 weeks, I'm going to deliver this, which is going to give me another main general functionality, and so on. Then you're going to go and have to pick up the iteration and sprint. What specifically will we build? It's really about picking up the user stories, which basically talk about the features we would like to go and deliver. How will this iteration move us towards the release objective that we have basically stipulated? Let's create a plan to work on that iteration to get the outcome. Let's work on the development task that we said needs to be done to be able to reach our objective. The story really the bottom part, you know, what user or stakeholder needs will be served by this story we go and deliver? How will it specifically look and behave? How will I determine if it's completed? This is where you write the user story in detail, and you write the acceptance criteria that I'm going to be talking more about today when I show you in the tutorial. We talk about doing your own assignment. So the detailed story that you need to write, how you're going to write it, and then how you're going to ensure that when we go and finish or assembly, when someone comes and tell me, oh, we finished delivering the story, how can we actually make sure that it has actually really been delivered, not just simply words? So we'll speak about the first part. So if we think about here, you know, the product goals, the product charter. So let's think about the charter. What do we need to have in a charter? The vision. Why are we doing the project? The mission. What the project, you know, what of the project, and it states what will be done to be able to go and achieve the vision we said we would like to go and achieve. Success criteria. The management tests that describe the effects outside of the solution itself. How do we know that we've actually achieved the success we would like to go and achieve? Is it going to be lower cost? Is it going to be more efficiency? Is it going to be better customer service? What is it really going to be that the client is going to be happy with? Other elements, working practices. How are we going to plan? How are we going to estimate? How are we going to define what is done? How are we going to track progress? How are we going to test the actual work? And so on. Continuous integration. Integration time limits, when it needs to be done. Breaking the actual build into smaller pieces. You know, create the code and then check in that the code is basically working well. How are we going to do all of these things? How are we going to code? For example, there's something called paired programming. In other words, there's two people sitting next to each other and programming at that time. One person programming, one person reading what is being programmed to ensure that they're not making any mistake. And then they swap. The person who was reading becomes the person writing the code, and the person next to him becomes the person reading the code to make sure it is basically meeting the expected requirements. Owning the code. Owning the code is really more about, you know, who's going to own it? Is it going to be the client? Is it going to be the developer? You know, in terms of documentation, who's going to do all of these documentation? Who's going to manage that documentation and so on? Iteration and incremental development. What is the iteration life cycle? Is it every 4 weeks we're going to deliver? Is it every 6 weeks we're going to deliver? And a development life cycle. For example, we might say every 12 weeks of development, we're going to go and make one big release. So all of these need to be things actually thought about from the beginning to basically know what we need to go and deliver at that particular point. We're going to define the vision that I mentioned here earlier, the vision. What is the vision? Well, what is the name of the project? What is the name of the product? Who is it done for? When will it be done by? What will it do? What will it not do? What is it going to go and actually be providing the benefit for the business? What benefits the consumer gets by using that specific product? It's really about setting all of these vision relating to that specific outcome. You need to write the vision in a way that anyone could understand what you actually planning to do. You can't write it in a way that is very complex language to be able to go and ensure people understand it. So So if I tell you, for example, now, I want to go and deliver the subject outline to create a constructive alignment, you will tell me, well, what? What are you talking about? We know you want to create a subject outline, but you want to create it to get a constructive alignment? We have no idea what constructive alignment really means. And that's really where comes your role as someone who's writing the vision for what we're trying to do. You cannot use something in language that is actually not clear for people to go and use. So you have to be clear onto explaining to people, what are we trying to do to ensure you are going to go and actually get their buy-in. If you go and tell them about something that is not clear, you won't be able to really go and ensure everybody understands that. And if people don't understand what we're trying to go and deliver, it is going to be very hard for you to go and actually get people's buy-in and acceptance of what you're trying to go and deliver at any particular point of time. So it's very, very important that that clarity is actually delivered the way it should be delivered. So when I talk about the team, what do we do when it comes to developing my project team in Agile? Well, you need to build a whole team. And what I mean by a whole team, it's someone who basically have all the skills that are required to be able to get the job done. So if we talk about testing, database, user interface, whatever they are, get someone who is actually able to go and get the job done. Don't have any person with, don't have any skill lacking that you basically would need to be able to get the job done. So make sure the team is formed of every skill that you need to be able to go and ensure you get the job done. Agile teams are formed mostly of generalizing specialists. They are craft people. They are people with specific technical expertise that you will need to use to get the job done. Java programming, project management, database admin. These are people who need to be with a certain skills that will help you to go and ensure the job gets done. Have a team that is stable. When I talk about a stable team, why is that important? Because if you keep on changing your team over and over again, you're basically shooting yourself in the leg. You're basically not getting the stability that is required to be able to go and ensure we are delivering the outcomes that we promise we are going to be needing. You need to understand that changing the actual structure will delay your project. If I have 10 people working in a group today, and then suddenly I remove 5 people and I introduce a brand new 5 people, they can't work very well with the remaining 5 people very quickly. Why? Because you need to spend that time for them to get accustomed to working with that team and to dealing with that particular problem relating to your project. So it's very, very important that you actually don't change your teams, create the stability that is required for as long as you can, especially during the sprint. Like when the sprint finishes and you want to go and work on delivering the second sprint, that's all good. But before that sprint is actually finished, which is usually about 4 weeks, do not change people in that team, because that would usually have a direct negative impact on your ability to be able to go and get the project to be delivered. So strive to keep your team stable. A goal is easier to achieve using generalizing specialists who have all of these various skills that you need that will facilitate you being able to get the job done. Now we need to create a product backlog. What is the product backlog? What is it? Well, you know, in the past when they used to go and work using traditional project management, the way that they used to go and work is they used to send people to speak to the client. And once they speak to the client, they'll collect all of these various requirements. And once they actually collect the requirements, they write them down into pages and pages and pages of requirement that goes and actually get implemented at that particular point of time. So that's what they used to actually go and do. The way that it's done now is we go and create a product backlog. And the product backlog is really this detailed requirement that I would need to go and write, you know, or I used to need to go and write in the past. Well, I don't need to go and worry about that at this stage. It's basically the old way, old school days of doing things. So basically go and create a more specific way of writing requirements in a way in the form of the user story that you need to go and develop for your assignment, and I'll talk about very, very shortly. It's really a form of shopping list of ideas that is meaningful for the business. In other words, what does the business really want me to go and deliver for them at any particular point of time? So it's actually about really looking at what does the business need and try to deliver exactly on all of those various requirements. Items on the backlog are user-centric. In other words, it's basically built and developed based on after we spoke to the client, understand what the client actually needed, we went and made adjustments accordingly to what they actually have requested. So it's basically about thinking specifically about what the client is requesting from us to go and actually deliver. So what do? We define the primary functionality. We produce a summary list of what is needed to produce the product vision. And that will basically would be more high level on the main things we would like to go and deliver in terms of our vision. Think about, each step of the customer journey to produce a workflow. So if you're talking about someone going and buying online from the internet on a retail store, there's a journey. They need to go to the online store. So everything needs to be ready there, set up, ready to go. They need to go and press purchase, and once they do that, it needs to go through the payment process. After the payment process, the details of the order need to be sent to the agent to go and deliver what is needed. We need to have details about transportation, all of these things. So when you're thinking about that outcome you're trying to go and deliver at any particular point of time, you need to think about each step of the actual journey. What does the customer do? What are the steps they need to go and be involved in? Because when you start thinking about the customer and the steps that either them or their transaction go through, then you'd be able to know the map of how things need to be done. And you start creating, on the next stage, the actual features, specifically the features. So once you create the workflow, once you map what needs to happen, all the steps that needs to go and happen, gather ideas about what is actually done within each step in the journey. So if, let's say, the first step is about, browsing the website, what does browsing the website really mean? Let's think about all of these jobs that needs to go and be done when you're trying to go and actually, try to go and shop using the website. When you add all of these various things together, these items deliver the functionality of the steps and are often referred as a feature group. So we need to think about the feature groups that will basically combine, deliver what the client really needs to go and actually get at that point of time. Once I get all of those features, I need to decide which feature is more important and which feature is less important. The feature that is more important is my priority. That's where I need to focus on. That's where I need to go and actually create the early direction, early focus to really work on that from the beginning. So I need to go and think about what are the main features, because once I know what is the priority of all of those features, I am able to go and decide what am I going to be working on first to be able to go and get all of those various features delivered. Identify the first delivery. What is the first delivery? Well, if you go and prioritize all the features between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever they are, to be able to get those features delivered to the client, you need to make sure that they are going to give you what we call as a minimum viable product. For example, if you say you would like to be able to go and generate reports using CBA internet banking. If you go and create a code and all of what that code does for me is to go and allow me to log into the login page, then what is the point of me doing the login page if the client is unable to go and use it to be able to really go and reach their outcome? If the client is unable to use it to reach their goal, the question is, why are we even doing that specific feature that we went and actually delivered? So you need to think about what is a minimum viable product. So in other words, what features can I add together and combine and work on them to go and deliver together in order for me to be able to go and ensure that the output that I'm going to be delivering is an output that actually works very, very well for the client. So if it's not gonna help them to do what they want to do, if it's not gonna help them to serve a task, there's no point for you to go and actually add some of these features. So the features are the priorities of things that the client needs to be able to do. It could be run a report, it could be generate report, it could be login. Together, all of these things combined need to be able to go and give you a product that is going to be able to go and be used by the client, and that's what we call the minimum viable product. If the client can't use it, then it's not a ready to serve product. You need to get a product that is ready to go by developing and delivering all of these various features. Obviously, any feature we're going to go and deliver needs to go and be accepted by the client, and we will talk about that acceptance now. So in terms of all of these acceptance criteria, we need to really have a way to go and say, how do we actually know that the work was actually done? You can't go and actually say, let's say I say, I want to go and get a car that would go between 0 and 100 in under 5 seconds. How do you know that the car will go between 0 and 100 in under 5 seconds? Well, the only way for you to know is for you to actually go and try the car after you've delivered it. You go, you drive it, you see, okay, did it actually do what I said I wanted to go and do? If it did, then that's great. You've actually managed to be able to go and get the outcome. If it didn't, then basically straight away you know that you won't be able to go and get the outcome. The actual outcome hasn't been delivered appropriately. So whenever you go and create a user story, at the same time, you also need to go and write a user acceptance testing that is really, really crucial. So I'm gonna now change the screen. You can see this Moodle site, and you can see on this Moodle site, there was a sample assignment 1, and there's a sample assignment 2, which is basically is added there. So if you click on sample assignment 2, you'll be able to go and clearly see that there's the part about the project management body of knowledge, and there's a part about the agile methodology. But most importantly, if I go all the way down, the parts highlight in yellow is very, very important to know, for you to know about. Now, one is you need to know who are the users of your system. You need to clearly define the users of your system. That's step 1. Step 2, you need to go and ensure you're going to write user stories. In other words, what features we need that are relating to each user. So if it's a director, the director, as a director, I want an account on a portal, right? So that I could have a superior authority. So I know who is the author or the user. I know what they want to do, and I know why they want to be able to go and do that particular outcome. So that's something to really go and bear in mind when you're going to be working on your assignment very, very shortly. But just bear that in mind when you're going to work your on your user stories. And this is crucial. For every user story, you need to make sure that there's an acceptance criteria. How do we know that that user story that is listed here is actually going to be delivered. Well, it's saying, what's the acceptance criteria? Well, given that I'm a director user, when I submit my details and Australian Government Officer ID, a unique login credential should be allocated to me so that when I want to log into the portal, it should log in with superior authority to have control and access to everything. So he's telling you in that specific acceptance, how do we actually know that what we wanted to go and deliver and what we want the user story to deliver, the feature, is actually delivered? Well, it's giving you all of those details about how we ensure it gets delivered. For every user story you have, you need to make sure you are actually writing the acceptance criteria and dealing with it accordingly. So please bear that in mind when you're writing all of your various work. So if I go back to the lecture slides, it's very, very important to actually know that the work has been completed. In order to work efficiently, it is important to know when do we stop. You stop when you ensure that things are being delivered. What are the boundaries of the work? How much do we do for it to be accepted? If you need to do less for it to be accepted, why do you want to go and actually do more? For the user story to be truly done, it needs acceptance criteria, the prerequisite that have to be met for the story to be assessed as complete. Acceptance criteria can take many forms, from a simple condition of satisfaction all the way through to the rigorous and very exact checks. So the check that I gave you was a bit general. If you want more specific check, it could say, I want to be able to download a report. I want to be able to go and send messages to people. I want to be able to go and get information about the exact numbers. So you'd be more specific in terms of what that acceptance criteria, what do you need to be able to do for the actual user story to be accepted. For a purpose of getting agile, a simple binary statement written in a plain English is best. Now, what is a binary statement? It's a statement that says something along the line, if this happened, then something else happened. In other words, if I was to go and show you this example, if I log in to the account, I could get superior access. Just really talking about two things that are related together. As a user, I want to do this so that I can do this. There's actually connection between those two statements to be able to get a job done. There's always risks, guys, within any project you do. Whether it's an agile project, whether it's a traditional project, whatever you go and do, there's always going to actually go and be an issue. Don't deviate from tried and tested practices. Don't try something that you haven't tried before and say, let me go and actually try it now. If your changes don't work, just drop them. So many people try to change too much. So we're not saying don't change at all, but we're saying just don't change too frequently, okay? Like if you want to, let's say, introduce a new thing, maybe introduce one thing instead of introducing 10 things. You know, keep on the majority of the practices you're doing, keep on actually doing the same thing. But for some practices, you'll be able to go and make something extra, some extra change, and that's basically going to go and help you to get some improvements to go and actually happening. Another thing to bear in mind is communicate, communicate, and communicate, okay? If you don't communicate, you're going to have an issue. Bad communication is the root of all evil. Leaving information out and don't tell people what is happening is, again, another very big problem that you need to go and bear in mind. You know, if you give people bad information or you don't give people the information that they need to make a decision, well, you know what? They're the same. What is different? There's nothing different about them. They're actually exactly the same thing. You're still actually not allowing people to have all the information they need to get the best outcome. Use the backlogs as the focus for regularly having the right conversation at the right time. The backlog will be able to kind of drive what needs to happen, what people need to be working on at any particular point of time. Avoid large work items. The larger the requirements, the harder they are to actually understand. So make them small, small size, easy to manage and so on, to be able to go and get the right outcome. Keep talking. The best way to manage agile risk is by continually having meaningful conversation with those people that are actually around you. Okay, let them all talk. Don't say only the manager could talk. Allow, as the actual agile approach works, allow everybody to come and share their view, tell you what's happening, and basically go and try to, get the ideas of everybody about what could be done and how do we actually go and do things. If you don't actually communicate, if you don't allow everybody to go and share their point of view, you might be missing on a very, very important point of view. That is basically the most important point of view that you're missing on. If you want to get the right outcome, making sure that all the time, every point of view is actually being listened to, being considered, so that we are actually having clear risks that are easily understood and that are actually easily being managed. We need to manage a backlog. What does managing the backlog means? Don't create the backlog and forget about it, because the backlog, once you create it, there's always going to be things added to it. Things will change. More things will be added. More requirements will come. So what you need to do, you need to be able to go and really go and get all of these extra backlogs that gets created. You need to be able to go and think about them. You need to be able to go and ensure they are creating the right priorities. So if they go and actually added 10 extra features, these new features that you've added, are they more important or are they less important than all the other features that we have? If they are more important, then you need to reprioritize all of these items in the backlog. Because if you don't actually prioritize them, if you don't actually change them, then what's going to happen is you might be working on a user story that you want to go and deliver, and that user story is actually not an important user story. So you need to actually go and really think about that and ensure you get the right user story worked on at any particular point of time. The backlog has to be living, breathing, changing. If things come up, we need to actually communicate it. We need to change it, communicate with others, reduce the risk, manage expectation. The backlog needs to be up to date. At the start of the project, a backlog is usually full of functional requirements and features written as user story. As it moves on, we start adding more and more information, more details, more user stories, and we start adding things that might not be only about the features. There could be a fault that we need to work on. That could be non-functional requirement. That could be an improvement. That could be an enhancement. That could be a new feature. All of these things we need to go and actually work on and actually add. So write them all down, blank them down with everything, order them as part of importance, and that's really how we go and actually work. So guys, we're also going to talk about the Kanban that you need to go and actually work on as part of your assignment. You need to go and show me that you created the Kanban which visually show all of those features that you guys need to go and work on for your assignment. So please make sure you go and actually look at that Kanban and create the Kanban very well, as I actually showed you in the recording that is available on Moodle. So I've added it there for you so that you guys will have very clear and detailed clarity about what needs to go and happen. So literally Kanban is basically translated from Japanese to mean a signboard or a billboard. Started life as a scheduling system in the motor industry and is now one of the fastest growing areas in the agile market. In Kanban, what they basically used to do, they basically used to kind of use what we call a Kanban card. And the Kanban card basically used to be in the manufacturing industry, something more along about telling us, do we actually go and need to order more items? If, for example, all the cards basically goes and be listed at a certain stage or a certain location, then people know that you need to go and order more items because we no longer have any items that are available in stock. And if you don't have more items that are available in stock, that means you are not actually able to go and get the manufacturing that is required to be able to go deliver to the client what they need. So it's very important to go and create a very similar visual representation of all of these items that you have or items you need to work on in a way that is going to actually allow you to know what you need to be working on at any particular point of time. So it's really easy to grasp, it's simple to implement, and costs pretty much nothing to go and do by creating all of that Kanban. A big advantage of Kanban is that it can be used by individuals or teams to manage their workload, to manage on a small scale or large scale project. It basically applies equally to everything. So it's an excellent way to go and work, to be able to have a clear visibility about what we need to be working on at any particular point of time. So the heart of Kanban is that all work starts with a to-do list. So we need to do something, and everything basically continue in terms of until it's basically been done. So it starts with that and it goes all the way until the end. So the actual to-do is really more about what we need to go and do in terms of all of those features. So so it's really about thinking about that aspect. Now Kanban encourages teams to begin with the current status quo and build on it. So let's start with what we have at the moment. Let's start with all of these approaches we have at the moment. Let's start with the structure we work on at the moment, and let's just go and build on how we do things one step at a time. So let's actually work slowly to be able to go and get the job done. How do we actually get the job done? How do we actually go and make the improvement? By going and actually consulting with the people around us. If you don't consult with those people who have a lot of expertise in that area, you won't be able to really go and get the right outcome. Change is consensual. Change is basically, because it's basically building on all of these ideas that has been given to us by the various people who are expert potentially in the area of Agile. It is basically consensual, so they're actually enthusiastic about actually getting that specific project to go and be implemented. There are 3 guiding principles that sum it all. Start with what you do now. Agree to pursue incremental and evolutionary change to change the whole thing we do. And respect the current process, respect the rules, respect people's responsibilities, respect people's titles, and work with them to be able to go and get the job done. How do we implement Kanban? Well, first, let's go and actually visualize the workflow. Kick off with a visual representation of the flow of work going from to do all the way to done. So create maybe like a if you want a board, and first to kind of show you for a second. So if you go here, and you'll be able to go and see the Kanban board. So you create that visual representation, and that could be current, new term, future. That could be stories, which is your backlog, to do, in progress, testing done. So you basically create that visual representation of these steps that you're trying to go and do at a particular point of time. So you create that visualization. Many prefer adding, other steps, in progress or plan, design, draft, build. Like, you choose whatever the steps that you believe are appropriate for your project. For example, an application project is different than a construction project. So you might want to go and use different sort of naming conventions that are appropriate to what you're trying to go and deliver at any particular point of time. Now, limit the work in progress. In other words, if I was to go and think about this image here, so in progress, they limit it. Why do they actually limit it? Because when you see, let's say here in this example, the limit is 4 cards. They can see if there's 4 cards, everybody could see if there are 4 cards in progress, everybody know that they cannot get any more cards in, and they know that these items here in progress are currently blocking our ability to go and ensure we are going to be able to get progress. So if progress is being prevented, you'll be able to easily see it because you're limiting how many items you have. You'll be able to clearly see there's 4, and if 4 is your limit, straight away, you know, we need to help those people in the in progress stage in order for us to ensure we are able to go and get the project to go and continue proceeding. So you go and try to limit that. That limitation helps you to go and have a visual representation of any issues and trying to go and work on getting things to go and progress as required to be able to get the right outcome. Manage the flow of work. The aim is to achieve a fast, smooth movement from to do to done. You know, so it means the process is operating efficiently at any point of time. So, you know, how do you do it? Well, make things consistent all the time, make things repeatable, make sure the process is very clear. Everybody knows how things work, and that will help to make the flow as smooth as possible. Make the process explicit. You know, an unambiguous statement of how the work is getting done is essential. When everybody understands how the work is being done, there's no wastage. Everybody knows that, you know, we need to go from this step to that step to whatever step. You know, this is the clear process how we follow things, and you know, it's really easy for people to go and actually continue working on things. Improve. Absolutely, we need to improve. We need to improve how we're doing things. But the question is really not more about improving. The question is more about how do we actually improve? And this is really the big answer. You need to improve collaboratively. So speak to the people around, speak to people to have that all of these various expertise. And only when you speak to all of those people, this is when you'll be able to go and actually get the right outcomes. Kanban is great for getting off to a low risk, zero cost, agile, very, very quick start that we go and actually deliver. Pinning down existing workflows and stopping glaring errors, controlling multiple pieces of unconnected work together, because you can see them visually, you can see how they all, you know, together will help to go and get the end outcome. Keeping the numbers of jobs in play down to an acceptable level and getting the team into an agile way of thinking. So they basically start thinking very well together, very well about improvement, about getting the progress, you know, working things quickly, and we'll go from there. Now, Kanban boards consist of many columns, but it's basically, you know, I'm not gonna say these columns because these columns and these names could change. There could be more than 3 columns, but if you're gonna go and make something basic, you will make something like, you know, to do, in progress, and done. To do is basically not started job. In progress is the one basically we're working on, and done is the work that we basically have already completed, and we are actually ready to go and be releasing. So this is a basic, but you really actually go and pick up from that basic to become able to go and create something much more detailed. So other options of the Kanban board is ideas, the maybe or maybe not stage. So you know, what we could maybe do, what could we not maybe do, to do or in progress, or done. Like there's all of these various ideas, there's all of these various variations of the naming. And I don't want to stick to any specific naming convention or stages convention. All what I want to say, however, that I would recommend when you are going to be able to be writing all of these various stages, I would like you to show me that you thought about what stages do you usually go and find in a development sort of project. Don't give me something that is more standard. I like to see that you thought about an important thing, which is about the stages in a software development. So think about that and get me the right outcomes accordingly. Now, ladies and gentlemen, building on that, how could you build a Kanban board if you don't have anything? Well, if you don't have anything, it's just, you know, there's a way you're going to be able to go and do it. And I'll try to explain you the process now. So, okay, so Henry Shavi is asking, what tools can we use to draw the Kanban board? And that's basically what I'm going to actually answer for you now. So, I'm going to give you an example. So, the way that this process that you guys are reading at the moment, what it's basically saying, I'm going to try to kind of go and link that to you step by step. So what it's saying is you buy 2 rolls of 3 meters by 1 meters, bright colored crippled felt, 50 pack of multicolored 6 by 4 inch cards. So, this pack of multicolored 6 by 4 card is basically what we call a sticky note. So, I don't know if I have any here, but the small sticky notes. I'll just show you what, in case you don't know how it looks like. It's really actually look exactly like that. Like these are the small sticky notes. But if I was to show you sticky notes, you've seen this. It's basically the small kind of notes that you basically could tag things. So you basically buy those sticky notes. And on top of that, you actually go and buy the rolls. So you go and buy a 3 meters by 1 meter. So it could be 3 meters by 1 meter long. You go and put them. You go and find a prominent wall in your Word, and you put all of these walls next to each other. The papers, there's a paper here, there's a paper there. You put them next to each other on a central prominent place that everybody who is working on a project team is going to be able to go and see. And you put it in a place where there's space and even room for several people to stand. And the reason why is because, remember, it's going to be about working with everybody else to be able to go and create the backlog. It's about speaking to them on a daily basis. It's about trying to go and make progress and make changes at any point of time. So you load the 2 strips of gripper felt lengthway across the wall, one directly above the other, so you could put one here, one there, you put them next to each other, or one here, one there, and they basically link. You divide the resulting 6 times 2 felt vertically into 4 columns. So let's say I put them next to each other. I make 1 column, 2 column, 3 column, 4 column. And then from there, what I'll do is I'll be able to go and name all of these columns. So I could name this column 1, ideas. Column 2, I could name it to do. Column 3, I could name it in progress. And column 4, I could name it the actual done. And from there, when we start basically have all of these backlog, all of these to do will go into sticky notes here of all of these user stories. And once I'm working on something, I pick up some of these user stories, I'll put them into what? The to do or in progress or whatever it is, I'll basically start moving them. If, for example, I'm working on, I pick up some from the backlog and I put them into sprint 1, they become basically moved from the ideas to potentially need to do. And then once I start working on it to do, move to in progress and then move to the complete stage. So leave plenty of space to be able to expand and adjust the number of columns, because you might need more columns as you add more stages, as you find, for example, that I need to have a testing stage. So you go and actually go and do that. The board will change and evolve. Write up the task cards on these 6x4 cards and load them. So as I said, you can load all of these cards here. Shuffle the cards around into the to-do columns until they are in a sensible sequence based on their priority. And this is really more related here. When you put all of these user stories, well, which one is more important than the other? And that's where you go and prioritize them. Once you have the priority, you can move the prioritized one, you move them to the actual one we're going to be having to go to do in sprint 1. and then we'll start working with that accordingly. But it's really about thinking about, that specific components of how we are going to be working on a backlog. So I know, I was asked a question about that. So Harishav, this is, a simple way how you do it. If you don't use a tool, just use the manual way. But if you're going to go and be needing to use a tool to create it for your assignment, I showed you last week, or last time we met, I showed you the Kanban and so I actually showed you Slack and Trello that you basically need to go and use. There's a video also that is loaded on how do you use Slack and Trello. So I encourage you to go and make sure you are doing all of these videos and using them, using those videos and try to see how you're going to go and apply that in terms of your own learning and in terms of the work you need to be doing for your assignment. But there are two tools we spoke about. If you want to talk about what is used in so much big capacity in industry, everybody tends to be using, or actually a lot of people tend to be using Jira, very, very good software when it comes to agile project management. So think about it from that perspective. But Harishav, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it does.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Alrighty, so the building blocks, the heart of the Kanban board is a to-do list. It's really what we're trying to go and do. This is also referred to as a backlog. So that's your backlog. This is the beginning. This basically tells me all that I need to do and the priority of all of these things I need to go and work on. Results is more, all work is of similar size. It is better to have smaller stories, almost equal size. Don't make too many big stories, because if you do make them, that means they are more complicated to go and deliver. That means you could go and make mistakes when you're trying to go and deliver them. Results is more predictable. End-to-end life cycle times are more predictable simply because you're creating user stories that are of a similar size and of a similar difficulty. Comparing like to like can also aid the review process. If you are comparing the same user stories, the same size, and how long they take, it's different than comparing one time a big user story to a small user story, and so on. Things will start changing. The backlog is refined more regularly. As I told you earlier, we need to keep on changing. Jobs are pulled, not pushed. What does that mean? Well, the team decides what they're going to work on. If there's all of these prioritized items, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and the team can only see that they can do 1, 2, and 4 now, but they can't do 1, 2, and 3 because 3, let's say, is a bit bigger. No one could push them and say you need to do 3. Why? Because it is about the backlog. It's about the actual team. The team is the one who needs to go and make the decision, not anyone else. The team decides what needs to go and actually be done. The team decides on the outcomes, and they pull the work that they need to do. No one could actually go and push them and say, you need to do this. They choose what is the best thing for them to go and work on at any particular point. Shuffle the deck once all the ideas, are set up through the list. We keep on changing, the backlog is not alphabetical. The names are going to change. The priorities of the user story will change. Guys, just know that, it needs to go and be changing. Know that you need to go and deliver value. So the work and the user stories that will deliver the most values are the ones you need to be actually working on and focusing on. That is really your priority at any particular point of time. So make sure you work and understand that priority to get the right outcomes. There are 5 simple steps to pinning down the priorities: rationalizing the backlog into standard size work packages, assign business value between 1 and 10 to those packages, assign a cost of delivery ranging between costiest to the cheapest, calculate the business value times cost, and sequence the result into descending order. Review and apply common sense. So in other words, some of them will give you the maximum value for the cheapest possible cost. Well, why would I go and actually spend more money to get less value? If I can actually get more value by spending less money, this is basically going to be the best outcome for us as an organization. We need to control the work in progress. With Kanban, there is an agreed limit of the total work We go on a work in progress, as I mentioned earlier. It could be applied to individuals, a team, or collectively. So if I have one big Kanban board, we say, well, doesn't matter if, it doesn't matter if it's team or individual, we can't have more than 4 items in the actual work in progress. We can say that. Or we could say, every one person can't have more than 2, for example. This is obviously different than saying we can't have more than 4 items in a work in progress. A maximum of 3 things in progress per person is a popular individual ceiling because it helps maintain people's focus. It helps avoid ending up with so many work in progress items that are 99% complete and the work is not actually progressing. Individuals are forced to go and deal with anything that is actually blocking their work. They're forced to deal with that rather than saying, oh, let me get another item and work on it. And in the future, I'll try to solve that other 1% issue that I'm not actually solving. Continual process improvement is an important part of the Kanban method. And the most important part, it happens naturally. The work in progress limit forces a team to be, always focusing, looking all the time at what is stopping the progress and dealing with that in a very quickest possible manner. So in summary, guys, preparing for Agile, start with a specific and meaningful vision. Nothing vague, something clear what we're trying to do. Think about business value. How are we going to go and deliver value that the client really needs? That is really the basics for everything. So develop a shared understanding. What is it really means? Love thy backlog. Develop a top quality backlog. Work on it. Get the stories to be clear. Get them to be understood by everybody to be able to go and work on it. Pin down the minimum viable product that we can actually go and deliver to the client and the client is able to go and use. Everything is basically about getting something that is ready for the client to go and use. If your product that you're going to go and deliver is not ready and won't add value, then the question is simply, why are you actually delivering that specific item? There's no point for you to deliver something that is not going to be adding value. Always work out the acceptance criteria up front so that when you go to the end, you know exactly how the output needs to be performing for you to know that the outcome has actually been delivered. Kanban is the board that we need to go and have in the heart of our operation. It will create this visual understanding of what needs to go and happen. It will give you all of these limitations about how many items could go at any stage in the board. Don't think because it's simple, it's not helpful. It's actually very helpful because it could help everybody be informed at any point of time about what's happening. And then from there, we'll be able to keep on getting all the improvements that we would like to go and actually get. My dear students, I hope you enjoyed your lecture today about Agile. Do you have any questions for me? Any questions? Alrighty guys, your task for this week is review the lecture slides and the tutorial materials and notes you have taken. Read chapter 4 and please continue working on your group assignment. And it's really, really important. There's not a lot of time. And if you haven't started, you're basically shooting yourself in the leg. You're making your job very, very hard. So please continue working on your assignment to get the right outcome. Now, thank you very, very kindly for all your time and your effort. I really appreciate all your hard work consistently. So remember, you can do anything, just work hard to be able to achieve the great outcome. So thank you very much for all your work.